Hello, Mr. Price here, and this is your video on the linear graph PLT, and this one is all about linear graphs. Now, there's a slightly different format to usual, and that's because I recorded the video but the sound didn't work, so I'm redoing it, but this time I won't be writing notes down, but I'll explain what I've done. So, let's look at the first question. We have y equals 2x minus 3, and we want the x values between -2 and 4, and we are asked to draw the graph. So, the first thing I've done is write down my table of results, where my x values go from -2 all the way up to 4, as asked for in this stage here. To get my y values, I substitute these into the formula. So -2 times 2 is -4, subtract 3, -7. -1 times 2 is -2, subtract 3, -5. And you keep on going until you get your results. And this gives you coordinates. I now need to draw my graph. So I need to make sure my x values go from -2 to 4 and my y values go from -7 to 5. And I've done so here. Okay, so my x values have gone from -2 to 4. I'm a little bit over, and I've labelled my x-axis. I've got my y values from 5 down to -7 as required, and I've then plotted the points. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So to get my first point, I've gone -2 on the x-axis, -7 on the y-axis. Plotted a point. -1 on the x-axis, down to -5. Plotted a point. Gone to 0 on the x-axis, down to -3. 1, -1. 2, 1. 3, 3. And 4, 5. I then drew my line through it, and I wrote the equation down, y equals 2x minus 3, and I made sure my x and my y-axis was correctly labelled, and observe how there are equal spaces between each number. And that is a perfect graph. You should have that for every single question from this point onwards. Okay, we'll quickly look at the other graphs. So we have y equals -3x minus 2 for the same range. So my step 1 was to do my x values from -2 to 4, and I then got my y values. So -2 times -3 is +6, take off 2 is 4. -1 times -3 is +3, take off 2, 1. And you keep on going until you get your points, and you draw your own graph, making sure your x values go from -2 to 4, and your y values go from 4 to -14, and plotting it carefully and labelling your graph. For question 3, exactly the same thing, and you should have got these numbers. If you didn't, check your substitution. Now, here I'm very briefly going to go through how you can use your calculator to help you with these questions. So, in this example, I was asked for y equals 1.5x minus 5, and you can write this by y equals 1.5 and whatever your x value inside brackets, subtract 5. In this case, I've chosen an x value of -2. You can type that straight into your calculator. So, 1.5 bracket -2 close bracket minus 5. That gives you the answer -8. Now, every time you want to change your x value, you can just use your arrows to delete the number in brackets and change it to the new number. For example, -1, 6.5, -6.5, or you can even change it to 1, which should give us -3.5, or you can try 4. It's a really quick way to get all of your values. And that is section 1 completed. Okay, now for section 2, I have drawn triangles for each of my lines, and I've made sure that when drawing my triangles, my plotted points are where there's a easy point to read it from. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So, for line number 1, it goes 2 across and 3 up. To get the gradient, I do 3 divided by 2. The change in y divided by the change in x. The gradient for that one is 1.5. Okay, for this one, it goes across 1 and up 2. So you do the change in y, 2, divided by the change in x, 1. 2 divided by 1. The gradient there is 2. For this one's a little bit different. It goes 2 across, but it goes down 5. So it's going to be negative 5 divided by 2. Okay, so if you need a little bit of help there, you can do negative 5. And you can write divided by 2 like this. And then I think, how many 2's go into 5? 2 2's go into 5, with 1 left over out of 2. So the answer is negative 2.5 for that one there. Okay, for this yellow one, I've got across 8 and up 2. So it's 2 divided by 8. Okay, or as a fraction, 2 divided by 8. Divide top and bottom by 2. And you get 1 over 4, or a quarter. Okay, and that is section 2. Finally, for section 3, you're given lines and you need to give the equation for it. We'll start with this solid line here. Now, to give the equation, you need to use y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. We've just done gradients in section 2. So your first stage is to get the gradient of the line. So for this one, I've done a triangle from here to there. So it goes down 10 and across 4. So I need to do negative 10 divided by 4, which I will do quickly now over here. So I want to do negative 10, its change in y, divided by its change in x, 4. Okay, 4 goes into 10 twice, with 2 left over out of 4. And I can divide that fraction top and bottom by 2, which gives me 2.5. So, I've labelled it y equals 2.5x, because m is the gradient, and the x stays as the x coordinate. So the gradient was 2.5, so y equals 2.5x, and I need to add it by where it crosses the y-axis, which is 3. So it's y equals 2.5x plus 3, because it crosses the x-axis at 3. Okay, this one up here next. So I found the gradient. It's 2 across, 3 up. So 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. So y equals 1.5x, and it crosses the y-axis at 1. So it's plus 1. Okay, this one here, the gradient is 2 divided by 1, which is 2. So y equals 2x, and it crosses the y-axis at negative 3. So you put minus 3 at the end. Finally, the last question, it goes across 8 and up 2. So I need to do the sum 2 divided by 8, which is, if I divide top and bottom by 2, you get 1 over 4, or a quarter. So it's y equals a quarter x, and look for where it crosses the y-axis, which is at negative 1. So y equals a quarter x minus 1. If you need any further help with those kind of questions, please do see me. It's important you can do those, and have a good day.